The 2023 rookie class has had an immediate impact on the Dynasty fantasy football landscape, but the key question after a month and a half of NFL action is just how quickly do we adjust our rankings? We're going to tackle that question with a 2-round 2023 rookie redraft coming your way. All right, let's jump into it here. We're going to do 2 rounds, 24 picks, look at those first 24 selections through a new lens using the information that we now know about them. This will give you an idea of the current dynasty value of these rookies. But if you want full idea of where exactly I rank these dynasty rookies compared to my full rankings, and of course, next year's rookie class rankings, you can head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard and look at my combined big board with over 600 NFL players and prospects in it. Let's go ahead here and start with Bijan Robinson at 101. Yes, even in a super flex, we are sticking with Bijan Robinson at the 101. He's performed at a high level. It's been kind of sneaky because I feel like we haven't been talking about him all that much just because this is what we expected from him. But he is performing at a running back one level. It's exactly what we wanted. We're going to keep him here at 101. At 102 here, this was a tough one for me. I'm going to stick with Anthony Richardson at 102. He was my 102 heading into the season. Now, obviously, the injuries are a concern. We have a concussion, we have a shoulder injury here, and he's going to miss a chunk of his rookie season. That being said, Anthony Richardson is still ahead of initial projection. When I decided that he was my quarterback one and we were going to slot him in at 102 in the rookie big board rankings heading into this season, I did it under the assumption that he could miss 10 games before he was really the starter. I was okay with that development curve. Indianapolis has thrown him right into the mix, and he's performed well. I like his touchdown to interception ratio. I know that accuracy, that completion number is a little bit lower, but I do think the accuracy is there as they work him into the offense. I've been impressed. And of course, 4 touchdowns on the ground. He's a clear rushing threat, which is exactly what we wanted for fantasy football purposes. The key question moving forward is, can he stay healthy? Can he protect himself when running outside of the pocket? He needs to work on that. And I'm going to keep him at 102 with the expectation that the Colts are going to coach him up on that. And we're going to try to keep ourselves off IR as much moving forward. At 103 here, first sign of movement, CJ Stroud up to 103. I am having him leapfrog Bryce Young. I had CJ Stroud at 105. If I did this, as my final one heading into the 2023 season. So I'm going to move him up here 2 spots. He's been perhaps the second most impressive rookie here from the first month and a half of the NFL season. I love the fact that he has thrown the 3rd most passing attempts in the NFL behind only Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins. The new head coach, DeMeco Ryans, is trusting his rookie quarterback to throw the ball the 3rd most times in the NFL. And how has he rewarded him? He has not thrown any interceptions. He's performing as a borderline QB1 at this point in time. I got to say, I was holding out hope. I like CJ Stroud's profile. I did not expect this type of immediate impact from him. Very impressed. That's why he's going to leapfrog Bryce Young. But I am still going to take Bryce Young at 104 here. People are panicking on Bryce Young. And so that's why I'm keeping him here at 104. I want to reinforce the idea, folks, that it is rare for rookie quarterbacks to come in and make an immediate fantasy football impact in the first month of their careers, right? We're used to waiting a year, waiting a 2. Remember the first year of Trevor Lawrence, right? And now he was a first-round dynasty startup pick, okay? So I'm not saying Bryce Young is Trevor Lawrence. I do have him in my dynasty rankings lower than that, but let's give Bryce Young some time to settle in here. Let's give Carolina some time to understand what weapons he needs around him before we totally pivot off of him. At 105, I'm going to go with Jordan Addison. He was my wide receiver 1 heading into the draft process. I really like what I've seen from him. I would have taken him 106 previously, but he's going to move up a spot here. I love the deep field volume that we've seen early. Now, it has been a little spotty in terms of his fantasy football production. Whether he hits is based on that touchdown, but I think with Justin Jefferson missing time, Jordan Addison is going to get the chance to start averaging 6, 7, 8 targets a game. And if those touchdowns follow in the absence of Justin Jefferson, we can anticipate another spike in his volume, despite the fact that I think Jordan Addison is already a borderline dynasty wide receiver 1. And then at 106 is Jahmyr Gibbs here. It's not so much that I'm worried about Jahmyr Gibbs. This was the type of volume load that I was expecting from the start, especially early on in the season. So I'm not panicking on him. And I do think Jahmyr Gibbs could have a unique X-level factor as you head towards your fantasy football playoffs, right? He's not getting as much usage right now, but David Montgomery is. As the Detroit Lions head towards the end of the season, that's probably going to swap, right? We're going to get fresh legs, explosive Jahmyr Gibbs shredding against NFL defenses that have played 10, 11, 12 weeks, right? And that could lead to some really huge playoff performances for your fantasy football roster. So the whole way through the 2023 draft, the 106, 107 area was really where we saw that drop off. That's where the consensus kind of got thrown out the window. And this is where things are going to start opening up now. So at 107, Puka Nacua. I'm going for it. This was my guy. I'm not sure that anybody can claim they were earlier on Puka Nacua than I was. I scooped him up at like 80+% exposure across all my rookie drafts, and I am absolutely benefiting from it. What's super impressive is that Puka Nacua is a top 5 fantasy football wide receiver. Only 2 touchdowns so far this season. We're going to see that continue to increase over the course of the season here. And the target load, it hasn't dropped off with Cooper Kupp in town, right? And healthy and on the field and splitting that volume. There's plenty to go around. Puka's the real deal, all right? We're pushing him up. He's not quite a wide receiver 1 in my dynasty rankings, but he's locked into that wide receiver 2 territory. It's the real deal. This is not a fluke. We are all in here on Puka Nacua. And on my rookie drafts today, if I was redoing the 2023 draft, Jordan Addison is the only wide receiver that I would take ahead of him. At 108, we're going to bump up Sam Laporta. I'm hearing calls for Sam Laporta to be the dynasty tight end 1 already. He's not quite there for me, but in my recent dynasty rankings update, again, available at patreon.com/rookiebigboard, I did bump Sam Laporta up to my tight end 4 spot behind only Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and TJ Hawkinson. I love the volume that Sam Laporta has seen early on in the season, especially relative to Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's clear that Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions want to feature Sam Laporta in the offense. I'm excited about it. Let's see if that touchdown volume increases, because that's the only way he's going to get into that Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews territory. Nonetheless, a lot to be excited about here early on from Sam Laporta. At 109, I'm going to go with Zay Flowers. We're pretty much holding exactly where we were with Zay Flowers before the season. I love the target load. I love the fact that he is clearly the priority target in this offense, but there's always going to be a touchdown limitation in this offense. So that's going to be the question for Zay Flowers moving forward in terms of where his dynasty value settles. I think he's going to be a guy that always lives in that wide receiver 2 range, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that, thinking about him in the context of the Baltimore offense. All right, 110, we're going to stop the slide with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I feel kind of bad sliding him down here at 110. And we, quite frankly, we could really take him as early as 108. Laporta, Flowers, JSN, it was tough for me to decide, particularly because I didn't expect this year 1 breakout from JSN. I got to say, I didn't expect Lockett to be as productive and demand as much volume as he has, which is why I did slide JSN a degree. But folks, this was always the plan. And this is why I had Jordan Addison as my wide receiver 1 over JSN from the start, because I know folks overreact from a dynasty context. Still, I think most folks would take Zay Flowers, Puka Nacua, and Jordan Addison over JSN. Zay Flowers kind of being that tough decision to make. Heading into next season, I think the projection is there for JSN. I think he fits into being an 80 to 100 target guy. The question in the Seattle offense will be touchdowns, especially splitting with DK Metcalf. But JSN moving forward, he's a borderline, wide receiver 2, 3 for dynasty. I'm not panicking. I'm not pivoting too hard. He's only sliding because other players have impressed. 111, I'm going to go with Devon Achane. He has really, really impressed. He was my running back 3 preseason, so he's holding that position, but he's certainly bumping up in terms of ADP. And there's definitely folks watching this video that would have him even higher than 111. But this is kind of a reaction to him going on IR. If he was healthy projecting forward, we'd be talking about him more in this 106, 107, 108 range, right? But for now, Achane, for me, he's really impressed in particular with his ability to score in the red zone. He's shown lower body strength, which I talked about a lot, holding up against the SEC defense, although he is undersized relative to the position. And he's shown explosiveness both on the ground and in the passing game. He's had huge mega fantasy football weeks that have definitely helped me. He was somebody that I was scooping as late as the late second round, and now we're taking him late first round. So he's definitely seen a huge increase in value over the first month of the fantasy football season. And 112 is an example of trusting my eyes more than I trust his quarterback or his offensive coordinator. But I am going to slide Marvin Mims into the first round of this rookie redraft. Now, I was high on Marvin Mims already, so maybe this is just some validation bias or doubling down on the guy who I really like. But we've seen some really good examples of how he can be a difference maker when Denver chooses to target him, especially in the deep field. At some point in time, they're going to have to stop throwing the ball to Brandon Johnson and start recognizing that Marvin Mims has already proven at the NFL level that he has great ball tracking, hands, and separation ability. And when we're talking about a guy who works into the deep field, if we can just consistently get him 6 to 7 targets a game, he's going to have the shot to be a wide receiver one week in and week out for fantasy football purposes. Round 2 is when things start to get really jumbled up. And quite frankly, I think you could disagree with a lot of what's about to go down. I'm always open to that disagreement, so drop a comment and I'll be happy to have that discussion with you here about what goes down. So 201, I'm going to go with Zach Charbonnet. Certainly hasn't gotten the volume load that you would want right now, but similar to the way I was talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, you have to understand NFL running back rooms are a war of attrition, if nothing else, right? And head coaches understand this, and they're going to kind of keep these young guys until they get further into the season. And you're going to see year after year, if you look at historical data, then the rookie guys start to really increase their volume load. And that's the type of dynasty value that folks are going to remember as we head into the offseason here. So I'm still pretty happy with Zach Charbonnet at 201. At 202 and 203, I'm going to take Michael Mayer and Dalton Kincaid back to back. I'm putting them back to back really intentionally because all the way through this past draft season, they went very similar in back-to-back range, and neither one of them has really broken out yet this season. It's in particular frustrating for me with Michael Mayer, who I thought was going to be a more pivotal part of this Las Vegas Raiders offense early on, and we saw on primetime what Michael Mayer looks like, and I think we're seeing that it's really kind of criminal that he has not seen more volume up until this point in time. With Dalton Kincaid, I think it's a reflection of the offense, which we always knew. That one was easier for me to have a lower year one projection. I never kind of understood the year one projections on Dalton Kincaid, so I'm not surprised by him, but I definitely had to drop Michael Mayer down. And to be completely transparent with you, I would have taken either one of these guys over Sam Laporta heading into the season. So you have to be able to pivot and adjust quickly in the dynasty landscape here. That being said, it's a rough time out here for the tight ends. So Michael Mayer and Dalton Kincaid are still living in that borderline tight end one territory off of potential 204, 205, 206. I'm going to go with a trio of wide receivers that have popped and definitely intrigues me early on this season. So we're going to go Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, Jayden Reed in that order. Rashee Rice, it looks like just a matter of time before he really hones in as the X in this Kansas City offense. Now, you have to understand, even if you're wide receiver one in Kansas City, you're target two, right? Because the offense runs through Travis Kelce. Nonetheless, I think Rice has shown us that he can be that dude. And so I'm going to keep him here early second round. That's a bit of a bump. He would have gone probably late second round, maybe mid second round in most rookie drafts. Tank Dell has really impressed me. His separation ability, his ability to win into the deep field, that touchdown upside here. Clearly he's clicked with CJ Stroud. Those two are definitely correlated in terms of overall, performing above expectation. They're certainly helping each other out. And then Jayden Reed, he's not getting as much hype, but if you look at his target share in the Green Bay offense, it's pretty good. As Christian Watson continues to come back from his injury, it'll be interesting to see how these things shake out. But Jaden Reed, he doesn't have that consistent volume yet, but he's shown touchdown potential. He's shown deep field potential. So he's certainly somebody who I'm keeping my eye on. You've been screaming at the computer long enough here. So Quentin Johnston is going to come off the board here at 207. I was lower on Quentin Johnston the whole way through. So maybe this is just me locking in on that take. But it's just not there, folks. I mean, Josh Palmer is clearly being prioritized over him. You look at the stats, Darius Davis is actually outperforming Quentin Johnston. And that's not saying much about Darius Davis, who, of course, was taken in the 7th round out of TCU compared to Quentin Johnston, who was taken in the 1st round. Now, at some point in time, Quentin Johnston is going to have to get on the field, especially with the Mike Williams injury. They're going to have to give him a shot. Let's just hope that he actually catches the ball, for somehow gets rid of those drops, which was my biggest concern all the way through. And then, if he can do that, he'll return plenty of value off of 207. The problem is that if you have him on your roster, you probably took him at 107, and I just don't see him getting to that value. I never did. And the first few weeks of the NFL season certainly have not changed my mind in that sense. At 208, I'm going to go with Tank Bigsby here. He's exactly what I thought he would be, a good rotational complement to Travis Etienne. And in terms of, Bigsby's upside, he's the type of guy who, of course, if Etienne needs to miss a significant amount of time, Bigsby can come in and kind of be the dude for a little while. But other than that, he's a running back 3 in the dynasty landscape, and I think that's what he's always been. That's perfectly okay. Late 2nd round pick, that's what you're drafting most of the time. We've seen some pops here with Josh Downs out of North Carolina. So I'm going to take him at 209. My big concern with Josh Downs is it seems like he's performing better with Gardner Minshew versus Anthony Richardson, sorry. So it'll be a real interesting kind of chemistry thing as that develops over time, but we have seen some good flashes of Downs playing out of the slot for Indianapolis, so I do think he deserves to go in the back end of the 2nd round. 210, we want to give a shout out to Michael Wilson. All right, Michael Wilson is a wide receiver 3 right now for fantasy football purposes in redraft formats. Going to still be that borderline wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 territory in terms of my dynasty rankings, but you have to be encouraged by the target share that he's had. Now, you look at that athletic profile from college, and then they took him with the draft capital. So you have good profile, you have draft capital, and now you have early production. We really should be talking about Michael Wilson more. Maybe taking him at 210 was too much of a slight here. 211, Luke Musgrave. I like what we've seen out of Luke Musgrave with Green Bay here. He's sneakily been a good part of this offense. He's getting enough red zone targets for a rookie tight end. So, at 211 here, Luke Musgrave, similar to Michael Wilson, it could be a little bit of a snub, but nonetheless, I don't think you would have taken them in the late 2nd round in most drafts heading into it. So it is still a bump in value. And then at 212, I'm going to go with Roschon Johnson. Not necessarily producing at a high level for fantasy football yet, but this is a great example of trusting your eyes, especially with rookies. You can easily project forward here as we get into next year that Roschon Johnson should be the lead back in the Chicago offense before too long. He's shown the ability, like we saw through the pre-draft process, to be good on the ground and good protecting the passer. So there you have it here, 24 picks, recapping how I would redraft the 2023 class at this point in time. If you have questions about any of these rookies, you're not sure if you should be buying, selling, pivoting, holding, and I didn't talk about them here, just drop that question in the comments of this video and I'll be happy to get to them. Give the video a like, and as always, I appreciate you checking it out.